Thanks everyone for your prep today.
We're all set.
Good morning and Happy New Year to everybody, the MGC team and to the public joining us today. Today it's convening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission and we are doing this remotely or virtually, so we will take our roll call. Happy New Year and good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning, I am here.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning.
And good morning, Commissioner Maynard.
Good morning.
Okay, we'll get started. Today is January 4th, 2024, and it is our public meeting number 494. We will get started with our minutes. Commissioner Maynard, thank you, and thank you to the team for their support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will say that Judy is busy in a hearing, so if we need to make any changes, please let me know and I'll take them as best I can. I will separate these out because I think we had some member changes out on the April 6th, but March 27th to March 30th, we were all there. So I move that the commission, Madam Chair, approve the minutes from the March 27th and March 30th, 2023 public meetings that are included in the commissioner's packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second.
Thank you. Any edits? Everybody's had a chance to read them. They were extensive.
Yep, I have a couple, but they're typos. I can just circle back to you, Commissioner Maynard, and give you those.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other besides the typographical things? All right. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And Commissioner Maynard.
Aye.
And I vote yes. Well done, 5-0.
All right, Madam Chair, I move that the commission approve the minutes from the April 6th, 2023 public meeting that are included in the commissioner's packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Commissioner Maynard, can you remind me if there was a difference in attendance? I don't think I noted that.
Yes, there was. Commissioner Skinner, I believe.
Yes,
Okay.
I was not present.
I just want to make sure if it were one of us that we were reminded of that. Okay, thank you.
So I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. Any edits? Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
I abstain.
And Commissioner Maynard.
Aye.
And I vote yes. 4-1 abstention. Okay. Moving on to our administrative update. Good morning, Todd, our interim executive director. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy New Year to you, Madam Chair, to all of you commissioners and to our team and all who are joining. We do have 4 items on the list for the administrative update, though 2 of them I'm going to ask that we postpone. The first, relative to cashless wagering, was going to be presented by Carrie Teresi, though she's unavailable to join us today. So if we can, I'd just like to postpone that to our next meeting. And then the second relates to the lease of the Boston office space. We're still working out an important part of that. So if we could postpone that one to our next meeting, that would be helpful as well. I would, however, like to move forward on items B and D. So item B relates to our responsible gaming conference, and Mark Vanderlinden is here to walk through that. And then after, I would like to discuss our insurance policy. So with that said, if I may, I'll turn things over to Mark to talk about our responsible gaming conference. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Todd. And good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So yeah, I'm here to update you on the status of the MGC's research-focused conference. If you recall, back in May, you approved the FY24 research agenda, and included in that research agenda was a few specific efforts on improving our knowledge mobilization. Basically meaning, how do we do a better job of research that we've created over the past several years, and making sure that it's getting to the right stakeholders so that it can be used in meaningful ways as it relates to policy and practice. So on May 14th, we are planning a conference. The title of this conference is Using Research to Rewrite the Playbook, Examining the Social Impacts of Sports Betting and the Changing Landscape. And I just want to point out, sports wagering is an important topic that we're dealing with at this point. But really, there's also a focus on the changing gambling landscape. And what I mean by that is the nature of gambling over the last 10 years in Massachusetts has really changed. We've created a lot of evidence that highlights what those changes are. How do we take that evidence then and rewrite the playbook? This is a conference that we've recruited the efforts and support and expertise of the New England, Northeast Council on problem gambling. So this includes Maine, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and New York. A special shout out to both Connecticut and Maine for providing direct support, financial support for persons from their states to attend this conference. And in fact, Connecticut, who typically holds an annual conference, has agreed to not do that this year and support the conference in Massachusetts. And I think that this is an important piece too. Part of mobilizing our research is recognizing that there's a greater movement afoot in terms of how gaming is changing the landscape in the Northeast or in New England. And so adding these groups to the mix is really an effort to sort of pair our research with what's happening in the broader landscape. We also have pulled in our contractor Grio, who has we have a contract with Grio to do some knowledge mobilization work. They are helping us and advising us to look at how we can structure this conference to actively engage new audiences, new stakeholders in the conversation, and pull them into this event. So again, this is going to be on May 14th of this year, and it will be at the AC Marriott in Worcester. And at this point, we have a capacity of around 200 people. So for an inaugural event, we recognize that that's a lofty goal, but I think it's absolutely a doable goal to fill those seats and accomplish our goal of mobilizing this research. Thank you.
Questions for Mark? Commissioners? Great update, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So Madam Chair and Commissioners, if I may, we can move on to the item D in the administrative update. That pertains to our insurance policy. So I just thought it might be helpful to walk through the status and offer you an overview as to the policy, which is commonly referred to as a D&O policy, or Directors and Officers insurance policy. The Commission has secured this and has had one in place since approximately 2016, though there have been different carriers over the years. The present policy expires on January 25th of this year, 2024. It's issued by a company called Ironshore Specialty Insurance Company, which is owned by Liberty Mutual, I believe. We work with an insurance agent to apply for and secure the policy, and I have submitted a renewal application for this coming year. At present, it's a $5 million policy that essentially has a $250,000 retention or deductible. So I thought it might be helpful just to run through quickly what types of matters are covered and who is covered. Of course, happy to try to answer any questions along the way. So there are three basic types or categories that are covered under the policy. It covers claims made directly against an officer, director, or essentially any employee of the commission. Even though it's referred to as the D&O policy, it does cover more than just directors and officers. The second category are claims made against the commission based upon the act of an employee for which the commission is required or permitted to indemnify that employee. And then the third category are claims made against the commission for an act which the commission is directly responsible. So those are the three general categories that are covered under the policy. In each case, the claim has to be based on what's referred to as a wrongful act. And that term, wrongful act, is defined in the policy and includes a wide variety of conduct and similarly excludes certain conduct. And I'll offer some examples. But it's important just to remember that the Mass Torts Claims Act also provides protections for the agencies and for state employees. So this policy is in addition to that. So, for example, under the policy, a wrongful act includes things like negligence, breach of duty of an employee acting in the scope of their work for the commission, or such an act committed by the agency itself. It includes libel, slander, defamation, plagiarism, copyright and trademark infringement, and a series of employment or personnel-related claims, including things like improper disciplinary action, discrimination, sexual or workplace harassment, improper performance reviews, improper treatment of a whistleblower, retaliation, violation of the Equal Pay Act, wrongful termination, wrongful failure to promote, transfer or employ, and a violation of an employee's civil rights. So that's not the entire list, but those are some of the bigger items that are covered under the policy. There are also a series of things that are not covered by the policy. Things like deliberately fraudulent or criminal acts, or bodily injury claims, destruction of property, breach of contract, for which we have an actual contract in place, and things like workers' comp, unemployment, and disability liability, which are covered under different bodies of law, are also not covered under this particular policy. The coverage generally includes the cost of providing a defense, though that amount counts towards that $5 million limit of liability. So that's those are some of the nuts and bolts of what this policy typically covers and doesn't cover. Again, we have applied to renew it for the coming year, and I will certainly keep you apprised as to where that stands. I'm happy to try to answer any specific questions about it, and of course, happy to share the actual policy itself with everybody. But that is, those are the details I thought might be helpful at this juncture.
Questions for Todd, commissioners?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Skinner.
Thank you. Todd, could you just review the first and second categories of coverage once again? I think I missed something there.
Sure. So the first are it's claims made directly against essentially an individual, an officer, director, or really any employee, and that covers seasonal employees and all kinds of pretty much everyone who works here. You know, so if a person themselves is named as a wrongdoer, then the policy covers that.
Todd, do you mean person in their professional official capacity or in their personal capacity?
It's both, as long as it's you know, in the scope of your work, and that's why they cut out other types of things like criminal acts and things like that. So
Sorry
if you
to interrupt. I just thought I would catch that right there, Commissioner Skinner. My apologies. Go right ahead, Todd.
Yeah, so if you do something at work, it's covered. And the second one is kind of an offshoot of that in some ways. It's a claim that's made against the agency itself, but it's based upon an act of an employee that the agency would be duty bound or permitted to indemnify that person for. So that's where the insurance policy steps in. So it's either a claim made against the person themselves or against the agency based upon an act of an individual. Those are the first two categories. And then the third one is just a claim made against the commission itself for something the commission did. And again, and this is important, it has to be for something that's not already covered under the Mass Torts Claim Act, for which someone cannot advance a claim. And you remember, we actually experienced that in the FBT case. That was exactly what happened. The first cause of action was intentional interference with contractual relations, which is a tort. And once the court established that we are a governmental body, that was an improper cause of action against the commission, and that was dismissed.
So the only thing I'll ask is that you'll ensure there's no gap.
Yeah, I think, and we work again with the broker, and I've looked at it, and we've actually at one point I did have counsel at A&K look at it too, and it feels comprehensive. Of course, with any insurance policy, you know, there are arguments to be made as to whether coverage applies or doesn't apply, and there's a whole body of law that covers insurance claims and a whole universe of lawyers who practice in that space. So the policy.
Yeah, my question about gap was not necessarily the coverage, but no gap in terms of the timing.
Oh, yes, no, we are well aware of that. We're on the case. We've
Thank you.
done the same, we've engaged in the same protocol for a number of years now, and it's worked out really well for us. So I'll certainly keep you apprised, absolutely.
Thanks so much.
So with that, Madam Chair, Commissioners, those are the two matters we had for you as part of the administrative update. Happy to address any other issues, but that would conclude this item on the agenda.
Thanks. All set, Commissioners, with respect to the administrative update. We'll look forward to the other two at the right time. Commissioner Hill, item number 4. I did speak with Todd about this. I am uncomfortable moving ahead on this today because I did not include the specifics of the under legislative update, and it is for us to issue that, apparently that letter. We received one comment. I know that we want to get this out, but I also think I feel from an open meeting law perspective, I got counsel's advice that we're probably all set. I'd like to be conservative on this and wait unless there's a big objection to January 18th, and then we'll also allow outside of the holiday period for further public comment. I think we want to express our appreciation for the organization that did respond with respect to our community mitigation grant, but I wonder if you will honor that, or does it really impact the timeline you had in mind?
One, it does not impact the time. I did want to bring up, revisit an area of the letter that some of my fellow commissioners disagreed with, and I wanted to have a further discussion about it. And I would look to you to tell me if that would be today, or would that be on the 18th?
So the way we left it was we received it. I think we're going to use the 18th for the discussion about troublesome areas, correct?
Okay.
I mean, that would be when we raise, if the commissioners have any points of either disagreement or needing necessary clarification, they would bring those forward, and I would have it properly marked up.
So they had already brought up those issues, or the issue that I would like to talk about, but I certainly can wait till the 18th. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have a problem with you mentioning what got brought up at the last meeting. What was that?
Well, there was the issue about the 3 years, looking at somebody who had been employed by
Right.
in this case, a casino, employee who may have applied to us. And I had argued or tried to argue that maybe we should lower the, from 3 years to a certain number, not get rid of it altogether. I'm certainly not for that. And there was a couple of my fellow commissioners who had issues with removing the 3 years. And since that time, I have heard from a couple of our staff members who had brought this up to our attention. That's why it was brought before the full commission, because there were concerns that had been raised. And I didn't have specific cases to talk about in the last discussion. I do now.
Can we reserve that for the 18th and just,
Of course.
well, and it's good that then you can have those cases ready. Also, as a suggestion again to the public, if they have any input on this specific issue, and then also as to the letter itself, which is in our public packet today, they could go through. Again, we received one very substantive comment, and we appreciate that. And given that there are many categories, I forget how many, Todd, many proposals, it's over 10, right? I think. We welcome any further input from the public. And Commissioner Hill, I think it's okay too if the team wants to speak about it, their experience, if they're comfortable, but otherwise you can relay it all on the 18th. That will be great.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's patience on that. Okay, we'll turn then to the Sports Wagering Division. Good morning again, Director Dan. Bruce. Oh, good morning. I'm turning to Sports Wagering Division, and I will let you do the introduction for your team today.
Yes, I believe that we have house rules, and that would make Andrew up first. Andrew?
Thanks, Bruce. Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. 2 items for your review today. First on the agenda, beginning on page 40 of your Commissioners packet, is a house rules update from Fanatics Betting and Gaming. Fanatics has requested several updates to their house rules for clarification purposes, additional rules to address new market types, restructuring and reordering of certain sections, and addition of rules to address one of the newly approved sports. I can run through a few of the examples, the changes here highlighted in the red line portion of your packet. Within the football section, they've added new language to address new market types, such as most passing, rushing, or receiving yards in a game by an individual player. They've also restructured and added clarity to the daily, weekly cross-match player props and team specials to make it specific to NFL wagering. Within the basketball section, they would like to offer specific player markets for stat milestones in a single game. For example, a wager here could be if a specific player will record 5 steals in a game, or if a player will record a certain number of blocks in a single game. They've also added clarity on markets for season-long milestones as well. Lastly, within the basketball section, they would like to restructure the rules for their FIBA and Lightning bet markets. This restructuring just provides better clarity for the customer. In their baseball section, they've added clarification for resettlement on specific markets, such as total runs, total team runs, when will the first run be scored, total bases, hits, RBIs, and home runs. Within their golf section, they've included the term double eagle to mean the same as an albatross. Those 2 terms will be used interchangeably within Fanatics house rules. Within the MMA section, the language is previously approved, however, is just a restructuring of the rules, swapping the 2 bullet points, again, just to provide better clarity. For cycling, they've added clarification language for resettlement, as well as language for additional markets, such as cyclists to win a stage or cyclists to finish in the top 3. Lastly, they've adopted language to now include pickleball for wagering within their house rules. As you remember, the commission approved pickleball for wagering on August 24th of last year. Fanatics would now begin to offer wagering for that sport. These pickleball rules align with other operators that offer the sport as well. All of this language is very straightforward and lines up with other operator requests that we've reviewed and presented in the past. And after reviewing, nothing here stands out as unordinary. All of these changes were similarly submitted to the other jurisdictions in which Fanatics operates. And furthermore, excluding Massachusetts, 6 of the 8 jurisdictions in which Fanatics operates have already approved these updates with no issues, while Fanatics anticipates the remaining 2 pending jurisdictions to be approved soon. And to note, Fanatics Senior Regulatory Counsel, Michael Levine, is on the meeting to help answer any questions. So after a comprehensive review, the Sports Wagering Division confirms all requirements have been met pursuant to 205 CMR 24702, Section 4, and has no reservations with approving these changes. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Andrew, and Happy New Year, Andrew.
Happy New Year, Chair. Happy New Year,
Good morning to
Commissioners.
you, Mr. Levine. Happy New Year. Questions for
Commissioners.
questions for either Mr. Levine or Andrew, commissioners. Very helpful to have the information about the other jurisdictions.
Certainly, I know that was a question brought up in previous meetings, so that's something that our division is looking into more recently, making sure that these are approved in other jurisdictions and which jurisdictions they are and which ones are still pending. So,
Questions, Andrew? I think you may have skipped over motorsport.
Perhaps.
Yeah, nothing concerning there, right?
Nothing concerning. No, this is just a little bit of clarity to the single lap wager that they're offering.
Single lap, yeah. It's bad luck if they don't finish that first lap, Andrew. Okay, commissioners, if you have no questions for our folks from Fanatics or for Andrew, do I have a motion? And nice work, Andrew.
I can move. I will point out that I've never had an albatross or a double eagle. So, Madam Chair, I move that the commission approve the updates to Fanatics House rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. All right, any questions, edits? Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Maynard.
Aye.
And I vote yes. Thank you. Moving on, Andrew.
Yep. The next item for your review. Thanks, Michael, for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
Next item for review begins on page 57 of your packet. This is a House Rules update from DraftKings. And the major change for your review that I would like to draw your attention is the additional language within the market rules section. I believe that starts on page 59, about halfway through. The major change, in addition to the edits and clarification language for parlays, round robins, same game parlays, and teasers, DraftKings is introducing language for progressive parlays. Essentially, a progressive parlay is similar to a normal parlay where a customer chooses 3 or more selections. However, a progressive parlay provides a margin of error wherein a progressive parlay can still pay out in the event of a losing selection within that progressive parlay. The number of selections within a progressive parlay that can be settled as lost and the progressive parlay still pay out is dependent on the total number of selections in that progressive parlay. Similarly, the potential returns for a progressive parlay are dependent on the number of selections in that progressive parlay. The greater the number of selections included in a progressive parlay, the greater the potential returns and the greater number of losing selections allowed. An example of this might be you select 4 winners during the 1 o'clock Sunday NFL games as part of a 4-leg progressive parlay. And after those 4 games concluded, 3 of the 4 games you selected won, while one leg of your parlay lost. You would still win your progressive parlay, however, with a lesser payout. DraftKings has submitted this change to independent testing lab GLI as they would need recertification. GLI has since issued that recertification for DraftKings with regards to GLI 33. This GLI recertification letter is jurisdiction specific for Massachusetts. And additionally, our division has reached out to GLI and they have no issues with progressive parlays, and that DraftKings progressive parlays are live in other jurisdictions with no issues. DraftKings has similarly stated they are experiencing no issues with these wagers as well. For the sport-specific updates within these changes, each of the sports listed in your memo addresses additional language on settlement rules, pre-live, same-game parlays, and player prop wagers. For example, within their soccer and rugby sections, they have now added language that all settlements are based on the stats and results provided by the official website of the league's governing body or stat provider. And for their tennis and hockey sections, they have added language for their pre-live and live same game parlays, where if a selection is settled as void or push, the same game parlay will be repriced based on the odds available on the DraftKings site at the time of the bet placement. Speaking of the jurisdictions, DraftKings has confirmed that 18 of their operating jurisdictions have already approved these house rule updates with the progressive parlay language included, and they stated they do not anticipate any issues with the remaining jurisdictions. Our division has confirmed those 18 jurisdictions have adopted the updates, and we have a list of those jurisdictions if needed. To note, DraftKings Senior Director of Regulatory Counsel or Regulatory Operations, Jacob List, is on the meeting to help answer any questions as well. And after a very thorough review of these updates, discussions with DraftKings, and communication with GLI, the Sports Wagering Division confirms all requirements have been met pursuant to 247.02 Section 4, and has no reservations in approving these changes. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Andrew, and Happy New Year, Jake. Thank you for coming on today. Questions, commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I understand progressive parlay pretty good, but I would like a couple more examples of how it would work, just so the public understands it and anybody in the staff who may be new to this.
Jake, that was the only example I brought up this morning. I don't know if you have any others that you've experienced in your other jurisdictions that you'd be able to help out with progressive parlays.
Sure. Firstly, good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners, and Happy New Year to everyone. The application of progressive parlay products really could be applied to really the same type of outcomes that we would use for regular parlays. At least for now, they're generally confined to 50-50 types of outcomes. So you might create a progressive parlay, which would involve the spread of all of the NFL games on an NFL Sunday, or just a selection of them, so 3 of the games or 5 of the games. And it would really function almost identically to a regular parlay, except that if you don't get every selection correct, you still receive some payout if you only have one loss among the entire group of selections, or if you only have 2 losses among the entire group of selections. So in essence, it's almost the same, but just with a little bit smaller payout for getting everything right, but more payout for getting some things right.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jake and Andrew.
Is it clear how much of a return you'll get? Like how's that clarified?
Yes, so the exact amount of the return for how many selections you get right is stipulated in the customer user experience when they select the bet. So as you choose each of the outcomes, there is a button in your bet slip where you can see the pay table, which shows you your exact payout for each number of the outcomes. After the bet has been made in your My Bets, so your bet history, you can also see the payouts for the different number of selections that are correct.
It's based on user experience. That suggests almost like each progressive parlay could have a different percentage.
Only for the different numbers of selections. So any, as I said at the top, for now we're confining it to sort of coin toss outcomes. So the -110 type of outcomes, and so the payout differs depending on the number of selections, but would be the same across different leagues.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, to further answer your question, that is in the House rules. So that is explained to the customers in the House rules that the full breakdown of the pay table is in their bet slip. So the customers will be able to see that in their bet slip, and that's laid out in their House rules as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Sometimes I just want to open up and set up an account, Jake, so I can see it for myself, but that's not really allowed. So here we are. Thank you so much. And I do see it with respect to suggesting in the vet slip there. All right. Other questions?
This is for the sports wagering division. Are other operators doing this? Similar?
No other operator has submitted this for their house rule updates. Only DraftKings is currently offering this in their other 18 jurisdictions.
What was it in the initial?
Pardon?
Was it in the initial house rules?
No. So this is an addition, an update to their house rules to include this language for this wager.
I mean, of the other operators, Andrews, what I'm getting at is, did we initially look at this through anybody else is what I'm getting at. I'm trying to see, is there anyone else doing this in the jurisdiction?
No one else is doing this in our jurisdiction. And in fact, like as I said, DraftKings had to submit this for GLI recertification for GLI 33.
And so just to clarify, none of our current sports wagering online licensees offer this anywhere
Correct.
across the country. Okay. Well, they're watching today.
Yeah.
And GLI had no concerns.
Correct. No concerns. They reissued their recertification letter early December.
Got it. And in terms of the other edits that are not specifically related to the progressive.
Yep. So the
parlay?
teasers. Yep. So the parlay, round robin, same game parlays and teasers. There's more of a restructuring to kind of include this language for the progressive parlays. And then for the sports specific, just their pre-live and same game parlay changes that I addressed for tennis and hockey, and then soccer and rugby, which is including language to state that they're using the official governing body for results.
Any questions, commissioners, on either the progressive parlay or the other amendments here? Jake, thank you for your time today. If there are no further questions, it sounds as though our sports wagering division is satisfied with this. Do I have a motion? Still reviewing. Anyone ready to move? Commissioner Maynard, have you turned off your volume?
Yeah, I actually took the minute to re-review and actually pull up some materials. I move that the commission approve the updates to DraftKings house rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Maynard.
Aye.
I vote yes, 5-0. Thank you, Jake, and Happy New Year. Andrew, thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Madam Chair, I'm in text conversations with Crystal Boscheman right now. She's going through a restart on her computer. She's asking if we can move the WinBet item. She's more prepared than me on that item.
Yeah, that's fine. And I appreciate the heads up. Restarting is happening all over. So what we'll do is we'll move right into at least item 6A, and then we'll return to 5C. And thank you to IEB for being right ready. Hi, Caitlin, and good morning, Kara. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year.
Okay. Thank you, Kara. Caitlin is our interim IEB director. So congratulations again on your new role. And I know that for 6A, we're really looking at a kind of a high level update on the process that you're going to roll out, I think, in more detail January 18th.
Yes, this is so Kara is going to walk through the temporary licensure process because that is right on our doorstep with regard to the Cat 3 sports wagering operators and then also the PPC, the Cat 1 license. So Kara will walk through that. And just to be clear, the presentation on the 18th will be more about the durable suitability process. So it's sort of in 2 stages. We'll talk about temp now and durable on the 18th. But with that, I will turn it over to Kara.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So as we kind of briefly discussed when we were approving the renewal form, temporary licenses expire after 1 year and operators must timely request a renewal of their temporary license. And in order to be considered a timely renewal, operators must apply for renewal no sooner than 10 months, but no later than 11 months after the expiration date of their initial license. And just as a reminder, because we have a lot of important dates in the licensure process, the date of licensure is a separate date from suitability. So first, the operator had to be found suitable, then they were eligible to request the temporary license, and then there was the certificate of operations process that actually allowed them to go live. So once the request is for renewal and $10,000 application fee has been received, the temporary license is deemed not to expire until the commission makes a decision on the renewal at a public meeting. So, and they do need to be given 14 days notice of that meeting. And then should the commission approve the renewal, the $1 million license fee would be due within 30 days. So that's kind of the overview of the process. And in terms of where we are, the form was provided to all of the temporary licensees before the holidays, and they've been notified of their due dates. We'll be looking to schedule the renewal requests, but we're happy to do that and discuss that in an agenda setting. And in terms of dates,
Kara, could you just repeat that line about agenda setting, please? I want to make sure.
Yeah, so we'll, you know, so essentially, once the requests are received, the licenses do not expire. So we have some time. We will obviously want to schedule that, and so we'll want to do that after we have received the requests, so we can do that on an agenda setting.
Right, thank you.
Of course. And then, so in terms of the category 3 licensees will expire February 23rd, and PPC is actually due to expire January 12th. We've already received the application from PPC, and I believe Caitlin will be discussing that posture.
Yes, so as Kara noted, the category 3s all expire on February 23rd, which means that they will have their renewals due about 30 days before that, a month before that. So those will be coming in this month in January. PPC is in a little bit of a different situation because they expire on January 12th. As Kara noted, they've already put in their request to extend their temp, but as you'll remember, at the same time that they put in the request to extend the temporary license, they also put in a request for a finding of durable suitability. And so what will basically happen is an adjudicatory hearing regarding PPC's durable suitability has now been scheduled for February 5th. And so the commission will take that question up on the 5th. At that point, if the commission determines that PPC is fully suitable, they will get their full license, and then the temp application will become moot. If that doesn't happen, then the temp application could move forward, and that could all move forward together. The one other thing that I'll note about this is that what we're going to suggest is setting a standalone meeting or a section of a standalone meeting to address all of the temp requests at the same time, because they're all going to be very similar, and it might make sense to just go through them all at the same time as opposed to sort of splitting them up across meetings. And, obviously happy to take the commission's input on that, but that would be our suggestion. I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner O'Brien? Are you
I'm all set.
muted? Other questions? I think that I also asked at our agenda setting that we get clarity around the field of who we of category 3 licensees and the status of our operators. We have a couple who are not currently operating, and I wondered if we have an update.
Happy to give an update on that. So I'll walk through the list. PPC, as we know, operating. Caesars is operating. Bally's Interactive has a temporary license, but is not operating. They have informed the commission that they are working on opening operations in Rhode Island. And once they are done getting set up in Rhode Island, they will then move forward with Massachusetts. So we don't have a hard date on that, but they have indicated to us that they will move forward with beginning operations after Rhode Island launches.
And just a clarification, in order to do that, presumably, I don't know what their timeline is. I think originally they were going to be operating sooner than now in Massachusetts. If they're delayed, they would, in order to be able to operate next year, they do have to submit their request for temporary licensure, correct?
They do need to do that. They need to submit their request for an extension and pay the fee to continue having the license.
Right. And we don't have any sense, because I don't really know much about Rhode Island's plan. So I'd love to know about Massachusetts' plan.
I think we can, I don't know if Bruce has any additional information from them, but we can also inquire and see if there's any more information on their plans and bring that back to the commission.
Director Ban, any insight as to Bally's?
Yeah, they're in the process of getting ready to open up Rhode Island, and their new COO said that at that time, when they have a better feel as to where they are, they would let us know, when they would be planning on opening up in Massachusetts. But they do plan to pay our license fee coming up. I know Kara was in touch with them on that. So I would assume with their willing to pay the $1 million fee and everything, that they're still planning to open up with us.
I think that's fair, Director
Yes.
Ban, so thank you. We just
Yep.
don't really know their timing, but that's okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioners, I don't know if you have any further questions
Yep.
on Bally's. Commissioner Skinner?
I had my mic off. I had a question about Caitlin's earlier update, but I can wait until she finishes answering your question, Madam Chair.
My apologies for missing if you had asked, or if you're taking your mic off. Okay, thank you for that. And then
To run through the rest of them, BetMGM is operational, Better is operational, DraftKings is operational. DCG has a temporary license, but never began operations, and has informed the commission that it does not intend to begin operations in Massachusetts. And so what will happen there is, at the end of their year temp, their license will expire and it will not renew. And so that will be the situation with that. They don't have to go through the procedure set out in the shutdown reg, basically the cessation reg, because they never began operation.
Madam
moving on.
Chair,
yes, Commissioner Skinner.
question for Caitlin. When does the license expire?
February 20th.
Okay, you did say that. Oh, that's for all category 3s. say?
Yes, I asked Kara, that they may be February 28th, but it's same week basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on, thank you. Fanatic.
And Caitlin, just I want to be fully transparent.
Absolutely.
We received notice from DGC when? Do you know?
I don't have the date of the letter, but I can look.
Okay,
Thank you. Fanatics is operational. FanDuel is operational, PSI is operational, and WinBet is operational. So that is the current status of all of the Cat 3 and Cat 1 temp licensees.
Okay, Commissioner, Kim, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Skinner.
Caitlin, just in the case of PPC, temp license expires January 12th, did you say?
Correct.
But we're hearing the durable suitability request on February 5th. So what's their status in between those two dates? And does the commission need to take any action to address the gap there?
It's a good question. Pursuant to the regulation, as soon as an operator puts in a timely request for a renewal of their temp, their license stays active. So we don't have to act on the temp request before January 12th. That can happen afterwards. Their license will stay active through that February 5th date, and then even beyond, if necessary, to go through the temp process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think it bears noting for everybody's edification too, that's the same process for the land-based, because we renewed PPCs and that was the same approach, that once the application was submitted, our time to process, their license carried through as being active during that time period. So it's the same way we treated the land-based.
It's on us. Okay. Which is a good reminder, Commissioner O'Brien and Interim Executive Director Grossman, it's a 15-year relicensure for the two resort destination resort casinos. PPC just had it shorter, a 5 year, so we've gone through that process once. Approaching now a little bit closer to that 15-year mark. So, but still quite a few years away. All right. Any other questions? I don't think we're taking any action. Kara, I'm assuming you'll stay involved in case on the 18th we have further questions about the process as it starts to really be activated. So thank you. At this point in time, you're feeling really supported by your team and everything, Kara?
Absolutely, they're great.
Yeah, excellent. It's a good group. Any other questions then for Caitlin and Kara, Chief O'Brien, and Interim IEB Director Mark? All right, thank you very much. An important update. Appreciate it. Then I know that Crystal is still undergoing updating, unless maybe she's on now.
I am. I'm here. Sorry about that. That was very inconvenient. If you guys are ready, I can hop back, but
no, you're lucky, Crystal. I think I experienced it. It was a 45-minute delay one. So
yeah, I was having flashbacks to when it happened to you. I'm like, how long could this be? But either way, I'm reloaded and ready to go.
Happy New Year.
I apologize.
Crystal, I said Caitlin. Crystal, Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you. Happy New Year.
So we're back on 5C.
Yes, and it is page 64 in your packet, just for reference. Hopefully a pretty straightforward request here from WinBet, but we, the sports wagering division, specifically Commissioner Band, I think received this, but I upgraded you, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Crystal.
I'm gonna apologize. I have medicine head, so but yes, we received this request from WinBet. Essentially what they're looking to do is streamline the window of their customer service operations for the phone lines. I do have the specific request in your packet. They're looking for the contact hours to be between 9 and 7 p.m. And they did specifically look at when their call volume was coming in, and there's currently less than about 10 live chats, I believe, that happened between that evening hour from 7 to 9 a.m. And they're really receiving about data shows about 100 contacts daily. So, not a high volume of calls anyway, but we bring this request to you just because this was such an important conversation during the application process. And, we had made note of that, and I wanted to make sure you were aware that such a request is in place. Just so you know, I've also acquired data from all of our operators as to what their all of their contact information and availability is right now, so I can share that with the commission. And we do still work with the communications team to make sure that every access point is uploaded to our website. So
Happy New Year.
that's all.
Crystal, I'm sorry that you're not feeling well.
Okay, it's getting better. But that's essentially the request. So, we don't see any issue with this, but we wanted to bring it to your attention.
We actually don't need, we don't necessarily have to vote on this, is what I'm understanding. We reserve that right. And Crystal in her memorandum, makes it clear that this is a result of the time that we spent on customer service access and types of access during our application process. I think it's important to note that at least in a meeting that Commissioner Hill and I shared, we learned that there could be customers who are looking for help about their application, their app, and how it works. And instead of going to the operator's customer service materials and information, they go to the helpline that is actually intended for those who have problem gambling or responsible gaming questions. And I think, and I don't know if Tom Mills is available, but our website does include important information around customer service. And Crystal, you're planning on working with Tom to really even make that more robust in information.
Yes, like I said, we've compiled a spreadsheet now, so we could even upload that. But for the most part, there's all of the contact points. I think I did see Mills pop on, but on the website for each operator.
Yeah. Commissioner Hill, I don't know if you want to add in, but.
I didn't want to add in, but I wanted to make a comment, but I'm waiting for everybody to offer their words of wisdom before I do.
Guys, do you have words of wisdom?
Staff I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm wondering if you wanted to hear from your.
You're not expecting any words of wisdom for the rest of us, Commissioner Hill?
This is the epitome of putting foot in mouth and can't remove it.
Well, I'm hanging on everybody's words. So first off,
I don't think I've ever seen a group so sick in my life as I have today. I feel like I'm at Mass General Hospital and we're right outside the emergency room, every one of us. We are hurting for certain today. With that said,
sounds like you're up, Commissioner Hill.
I would be a hypocrite if I was to sit here and say I'm okay with what has been proposed, because I was one of the ones who really made a to-do about customer service and making sure everybody, gets the service they need when they need it. But I also understand, you're only getting certain calls at certain hours. I think what I had hoped, maybe we could reach back and ask if that their hours would be 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. And what I'm thinking, the reason for that would be, if there's games going on, most of them get over by 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And most issues would stop at 11 p.m. once the betting, for the most part of the games, of the day's games have taken place. So I think a 4-hour window is something I would like you to reach back and see if they'd be okay with. Everything else, although I don't want to see any changes, again, I'd be a hypocrite if I said so. At least coming up with a compromise, I could go to 11 o'clock because that's when most games are done in regards to the betting world on the eastern coast.
Can I do a follow-up, please? Crystal, I understand you've been putting together a master list. I want to commend WinBet for reaching out to Crystal. I'm not sure if that's the case with all operators in terms of their hours, Commissioner Hill, so I want to make sure if we're expecting something of WinBet, that we are well informed as to the other operators and their general access. Because I don't think we actually, I think in your memo mentions this, Crystal, we didn't ever impose parameters, although we did assess and they heard us that we wanted great access. So Commissioner Hill, do you mind just sort of hearing about what the whole field is doing? Does it look like they go to 11? Oh, Commissioner Skinner.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I wanted to see if I could get a couple of basic questions answered first before we went down that road relative to WinBet. My first question is, what are they proposing to reduce their hours from? I'm assuming it's 24 from a 24-hour customer support. Okay. I see Director Band nodding, Commissioner Maynard nodding. So could we get a little bit of an understanding, more of an understanding of what the nature of those calls are that are coming in after 7 and before 8 or 9 a.m.? I don't think I missed it, but I think the customer support, I want to make sure that I understand exactly what that is. So, because I wouldn't imagine that folks are calling between those hours. I mean, maybe so, but I think it would be less likely, in my opinion, that folks are calling between those hours to change their email address or, you know, if they're having trouble navigating, you know, updating their bank account information, right? So what I'm getting at is, are these callers at that time of day, callers looking for problem gambling support? Do we know that? And if so,
We don't know. We don't know I mean, I'm sure every day it's very different too, but we don't know that. And we do know, just as a quick address to one of the questions asked about 11 p.m., is that on-site retail is still available till 11 p.m., just not the call service. And of course, WinBet is retail. So just wanted to make that clarification. We don't have a sense. I think we could try to get a sense, but you know, those calls don't come into us. So the after hours calls could be anything. It could be people. We do know what it could be, that what they have said in context is that when they hear from people at night, it's like they work different hours, or, you know, so, but that's, you know, just an anecdote. So
I know that we're not expecting a vote on this. I'm not sure what action we're going to take on this today, but I would like that information before I weigh in on this request. I'd also like more information on the process by which patrons are, their communication gets converted into an email.
That I can answer. I guess I think I can answer. So even though they do not have the 24-hour call, live chat, what we see, and this is with other operators too, is that the phone line is a direct voicemail line. So they are able to leave their message and then they are in queue to get that call back once the hours start. So they're immediately the first calls. And this is what we see where people do have a 24/7 line. It's a lot of it is a either 24/7 live chat or it's 24/7 callback. And then they leave a message or with their number and they're in queue to get a call back. So WinBet is not looking to get rid of that. These people would be in queue for as soon as customer service is back live at 8 a.m.
I mean, on the surface, I think the request seems reasonable, but I would like to understand what those calls are about at that hour, because if they are crisis calls, you know, I'd want to think about this a little bit differently.
So can I follow up on my earlier question now, Commissioner Skinner? Do you have a sense from, this is not punitive with respect to the other operators. I just think we should understand what the field is looking like in terms of customer service being available. Do you have that generally, Crystal? I know we all prefer
I do.
live.
And I'm willing to share this spreadsheet with you too, because, you know, it was the first time we kind of compiled all of this now that we've been operating for almost a year. But it would be a little, it'd be unique for us to have parameters set for this on one operator versus others. I'm not opposed to that, but that would be, if we are going that route, I think we'd need to address that across the board. I think Fanatics for sure has a till 10 p.m. And I believe I'm looking now. Caesars has till 1 a.m., but that's pretty rare. I think the others are, if there's a direct call line, like I said, it's a voicemail line or it's a live chat, there aren't a lot of direct customer service access lines at this point.
So parallel to that, Madam Chair, to follow up on your question, or to add to your question, could we try to understand at some point what the operators represented in their applications, as their customer support hours? I think, you know, that's, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I have that for you guys. So I can share all of that information. A lot of them require, you know, stated they'd have 24/7 access, but not necessarily by phone line. And a lot of them do maintain 24/7 access, but not necessarily by phone line. So that's what I wanted to compare to.
Okay.
So I do have that. I think I didn't have it in full before the meeting to be able to include in the packet, but I can surely distribute it.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning the 24 hours, because I remember overwhelmingly that is what most of the operators were offering, is the 24-hour customer support. But the distinction that you just made is a good one. And so it'd be helpful to just get our memories refreshed.
First of all, I feel really bad for making Crystal say anything right now. I'll start there. But I agree with Commissioner Skinner. I was sitting there thinking to myself, did any of these operators bait and switch us from the application period? And then I wanted to actually, to the chair's point, we may have not said it hard and fast, but if it was a part of us greenlighting an application, they should do it and they should let us know when they're making changes. So I do commend WinBet for doing that. My biggest piece here, and I'm hearing everything from my fellow commissioners, but I want to make sure that if somebody's account gets hacked, somebody gets somebody's banking information, that they can go somewhere and get it fixed. That's my biggest worry here. And so my question is really, and I can't really see it in the materials, do they have something, and I think Commissioner Skinner called it for crisis, do they have something that is that stopgap for crisis? That's kind of my biggest question, but I am interested to see if anybody bait and switched us, and interested in having conversation on if we do mandate it or put it in regulation if we're afraid that anybody's trying to get cute from what they did during the application period.
So, Crystal, it sounds as though we should probably compile a more detailed memorandum. And Todd, it sounds as though we do want to mandate this. We should probably be specific in a regulation, correct?
Yes, that's right. We didn't formalize this whole piece of the plan. So yes, we can look at that as well.
I think there was a lot of discussion too about not just voicemail, but also the robot chat. I'm not hearing that as maybe a feature that's given, but they have that feature as well. Crystal, I'd like to understand that.
WinBet itself or all of them?
I think all of them.
Yeah,
Whatever
all of it's included. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the thing that I noted, and we can cover this even more in detail, but in the applications as I was reviewing them for this, it really was that was the key component where they were saying 24/7. It would be live chat, or like you said, the robot chat, that the chat access. Not a lot indicated a phone number would be accessible 24/7. So but we can put all of that together in a further memo and provide that at the next meeting.
Okay, commissioners, I'm assuming that you join me in applauding efforts on the part of the communications division, the sports wagering division, to make our website as robust about how information can be gained about the app itself. And I think we make it very clear if it's with respect to anything to do with their health and welfare and wellness. We have a very clear line that would be maybe external to the operators, and that's the helpline. So, and to the extent that they offer something unique for crisis management, I'm hearing the commissioners asking for that too. So, anything else, commissioners, on this? Crystal, feel better.
Yeah.
I am actually, which is why I keep laughing. I'm feeling better enough to be here today. So
Maybe that's why the
thank
restart went, to give you a little bit more time to restart. So, all
Great.
right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll get all that together.
Anything else for Director Ban and team?
Yep. Thank you very much, Kristen.
Krista, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. All right, so now we'll turn back to IEB. And a topic that we've kind of been hearing about, but now we can actually hear in this new year. Lewis, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you. And
Good
Bert,
seeing you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
And I'll turn right to interim IEB Director, Caitlin Monahan.
Thank you, Chair. Burke and Lewis are actually going to explain to the commission what has been going on with the floor plan changes at Encore. So I'll turn it right over to Burke.
Thank you, Caitlin, and Happy New Year to all the commissioners, everyone out there. Today, I'm joined by Louis Lozano, the CRM, Casino Regulatory Manager at Encore, and we're going to walk you through an amendment to the approved casino floor plan at Encore. 205 CMR 138.07 subsection 3 states an approved floor plan may be amended upon request by the licensee and approved by the Bureau. The Bureau will review the request, either preliminarily approve it, deny it, request further information, or request modifications. You will find on page 66 of the packet the preliminary approval for this amendment. I'm going to turn it over to Louis, who has a PowerPoint to walk us through all the specific changes. And afterwards, he and I can handle any questions you may have. Louis.
Thank you, Burke. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and Happy New Year. As Burke explained, we're here to discuss Encore's amendments to the existing approved floor plan. And just to clarify, this is not related to the possibility of Encore's East of Broadway expansion, but in respect to that expansion, IEB was recently advised by Encore that they should be ready to present their proposed expansion in the next few weeks. Encore requested an amendment to the approved floor plan in October. IEB issued a preliminary approval in November and final approval in December based on surveillance inspection, equipment inspection, and necessary documentation. In respect to the amendment of the existing floor plan, the change decreases the total gaming area from 211,971 square feet to 204,807 square feet, which decreases by 7,164 square feet. And although there is a decrease in gaming space, 78 slot machines were added and the table game numbers did not change. To provide To provide specific details, I'll review each of the 5 sections that Encore has amended. This slide references each area, but I think it'll be easier to follow along on the next few slides, which displays a print of the gaming floor. The first amended location is the removal of the restaurant square footage in front of Frank and Nick's and Shake Shack. This area is displayed in 2 sections of green on the left. Has never been used as gaming space for slots or table games, and reduced the gaming area by 5,995 square feet. The second amended location is the former sports betting kiosk area, which previously had 10 sports wagering kiosks and is reallocated as a giveaway room used to distribute promotional items like jackets, sweaters, and other items. This resulted in a reduction of 322 square feet of gaming and is highlighted in green on the left lower section of the map. The third amended location is the removal of the snack bar behind the poker cage. This area is highlighted in blue on the top of the 4th slide. This area is highlighted in blue because it added 972 square feet of gaming and added 78 slot machines. The 4th amended area is the removal of the existing balcony and area in front of the on-deck restaurant, which previously had 7 sports wagering kiosks. This area is highlighted in green on the right side, and the existing balcony never had slots or table games. And the 5th and final area is the removal of B1 gaming area, which was previously known as the Express Sportsbook, which had 20 sports wagering kiosks. This reduced the gaming area by 832 square feet. So this includes the details regarding the amendment of the approved floor plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So Louis, this is Commissioner O'Brien. Going back to the poker room, how many tables do they have in there now? And am I right that when they put this back into use for gaming, it went to slots and not poker tables?
So the table game, the poker, only poker was up there, and poker did not change. They just moved poker from one side to another. So they started with 24, and with the amendment, they still have 24.
Right. And so they added 972 square feet. None of that went to more poker tables. It all went to slots. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Any follow-up questions to Commissioner O'Brien's question, commissioners? I'm assuming that.
I guess, but yeah, I guess I could say that I'm disappointed that they didn't kind of add more service in that regard. I know that was been an issue. I don't know if we've continued to hear from poker players and dealers, but just my 2 cents on the close to 1,000 square feet.
Commissioner O'Brien, maybe another way of framing that would be, I know that when we visited, you could see whether there was a prominent waiting list or demand for more poker tables. I don't know if that's shifted. Louis and Burke, you probably are well aware of our history of questions on poker tables. How are you feeling about the demand in being met?
I don't think the demand has really changed, and I don't want to speak for Encore, but I think they have future plans for poker in respect to the expansion across the street, which may significantly increase the amount of poker tables.
Commissioner O'Brien, you want to follow up on that?
That's a ways away,
Yeah.
best case scenario. So that's sort of a deferred payment on that one. Love for you to maybe have some more detailed conversations with them, Louis, and Burke about just poker in general. And I don't know, again, I know we had some vociferous communications with some patrons and some dealers who were hoping to get back to work early on post-COVID. I don't know what the status of that is right now, whether that's changed at all.
Yeah, I think months ago, we were fielding some poker complaints at Encore. And, a little bit of them were about the waiting lines and things like that. I don't think we've been receiving that as much, right, Louis, anymore? That's not the
Yeah,
Poker
they,
complaints are
the
down.
complaints decreased.
Yeah. And whenever we get those complaints, we forward them to Encore and they reach out to those individuals and talk to them about what's going on their casino floor.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I also had been, way back, received a lot of communication about the poker, and I have not received any over the past few months. And the only one or two that I did had to do with the amount of take that Encore takes compared to other casinos. And I talked with Burke and Lewis about that, and they explained it to me. And since then, I really haven't heard anything from any of our poker players, actually, to be fair.
All right. So I think, Commissioner Brian raised the right question, and to the extent that you just continue to monitor that demand, that would probably be helpful. I agree with Commissioner Brian. Should there be an expansion, it's going to take a little time before those poker tables actually are in playing operation. So, anything further on for the overall presentation from Lewis or on the poker area?
Madam Chair, the only question I have, is there any future plans to in front of the snack shops on the first floor? Did I miss something?
No plans. They just, that previously was gaming space, and they just have requested to remove that as gaming space.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm having a little bit of a challenge visually to see what that is, Commissioner Hill. So the space that was all tables, right, in front of Frank and Nick and Jeff, has that changed, or those tables, were there tables there?
So I can, can you see this floor plan? So it's the two areas. So what you're mentioning, the two gaming pits on the gaming floor in front of the sports book, that has stayed. That's not moving. The two areas that they requested to reduce the gaming space was in front of Shake Shack and Frank and Nick's, which is currently just tables for patrons eating food.
And so they're taking away those tables where people could eat and putting in.
Those tables are going to stay the same. That was just previously gaming space. So they had the opportunity to add slots or table games and never did. And that area is just going to be reduced, which they cannot add slots or table games now.
Thank you. So the tables stay, the gaming floor is reduced. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, the reason why we don't have it for vote is because this is an IEB has the authority through an internal control, correct, to go right ahead and make these approvals.
Through a reg, but yes.
I'm sorry, Caitlin?
Sorry, to a reg, but yes.
Oh, it's to a reg. Okay, I thought there was internal controls too. Okay, so, and the delta again on the overall.
The overall,
I'm sorry if I missed that in your presentation.
the overall, it's going to be a decrease of 7,164 square feet.
Okay.
So from 211,000 to 204.
Thank you. All right. All set, commissioners? Thank you, Burke. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Great start to your new position, Caitlin. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to turn to our Research and Responsible Gaming Division. And we have Director Vanderlyn. I'll let you do your introductions.
Great. Thank you. It's good to see all of you again. I'm here with Long Van, Program Manager for in the Research and Responsible Gaming Division. And today we're going to give you an update on the voluntary self-exclusion program with a specific focus on how we address and why we have the reinstatement session. So, and Long, I think you are going to drive the slide deck for us today. And just Long and I will kind of tag team this presentation for you before we turn it over for questions. All right. Okay, next slide, please. So statutory and regulatory requirements. So the voluntary self-exclusion program was actually explicitly required both in the Expanded Gaming Act as well as the Act regulating sports wagering. This has been translated into both 205 CMR 133, which is casino voluntary self-exclusion, and 205 CMR 233, which is sports wagering voluntary self-exclusion. And as it states in both of those regulations, in 133.01 and 233.01 scope and purpose, that placement of one's name on the voluntary self-exclusion list is intended to offer individual one means to help address their problem gambling behavior. And I think that this is really important when we say one means. This is one means, and it's oftentimes one of the first means that people take a step forward to address their gambling behavior. And as I've said previously to the commission and elsewhere, I like to think of voluntary self-exclusion as that sort of external control for persons who either struggle with or lack the internal controls to manage their gambling behavior. All right. And so these are findings from a very early evaluation of the voluntary self-exclusion program. When we launched voluntary self-exclusion at Plain Ridge Park Casino back in 2015, we immediately started an evaluation project with the Cambridge Health Alliance Division on Addiction, and this was led by Dr. Sarah Nelson from there. And the findings, I'll just review quickly here, that 17% reported breaching their self-exclusion during the duration of their self-exclusion. Rates of gambling abstention after voluntary self-exclusion are higher. Those who continued to gamble, a large percentage reported reductions in both gambling frequency as well as losses. That 75% of voluntary self-exclusion enrollees who completed a follow-up interview, meaning that the research team followed up with them after the duration of their exclusion, they reported reductions of gambling. And finally, voluntary self-exclusion enrollees reported positive outcomes related to well-being, mental health, and relationships, which really highlights the fact that gambling behavior does affect much larger than just the individual, but a broader picture of their relationships and overall well-being. It's not just about the gambling behavior. And I'd like to say, voluntary self-exclusion has been, in terms of responsible gaming measures, voluntary self-exclusion has been widely evaluated. And these findings are relatively consistent with other findings from similar types of evaluations over time. We're going to talk to you just a little bit about sort of problem gambling and relapse. And we have just 2 slides here to address this as a little bit more background. So this is from MAGIC, the Massachusetts Gambling Impact Cohort study that was wrapped up in 2021, or it was published in 2021. And this is, the cohort was a 6-year longitudinal study of gambling and problem gambling in Massachusetts. This was an incredibly important study and a unique study in that we were able to track around 3,000 individuals over the course of this 6-year study. And we had a high concentration of individuals who were both at risk as well as problem gamblers within this cohort. The top line finding of this is captured here, and I know this chart can be a little confusing, but there's a lot of movement of individuals' gambling behavior. And the most movement happens with individuals who are problem or pathological gamblers and those who would be considered at-risk gamblers. And you'll see that when I say movement, you'll see that there's a lot of movement from problem gamblers to at-risk gambling, and even movement from problem gamblers back to recreational gamblers. And similarly, at-risk gamblers, almost half of them in a follow-up cohort study were recreational gamblers, and some became problem gamblers. There's just a lot of movement here. And I think that when we think about how we structure the voluntary self-exclusion program and what information we provide to individuals who are both enrolling into the voluntary self-exclusion program, but even more so when people are preparing to have their name removed from that voluntary self-exclusion list, it's important to provide them with relevant and timely information. Next slide. And I will turn this part over to Long for the next few slides here.
Yeah. Happy New Year, Chair. Happy New Year, Commissioners. It's nice to see you guys. Today I'm just going to talk about the relapse and then sort of talk about the process of the VSC enrollment and the reinstatement. So the relapse, so this is a slide where I pulled from the Wisconsin Public Psychiatry Network teleconference, where it was reported about 90% of people who experience problem gambling relapse. And it's really discussion about the relapse when it happens, how we move away from stigma and move towards a solution-based approach, really moving away from the lack of knowledge, the misinformation and prejudice and discrimination that sort of fuels the stigma. How do we move that away and to sort of promote learning, re-evaluate and growth in the patrons? And I think this is very central because I think a lot of the VSC with the Game Sense Advisor, we move away from that, where we meet the client and sort of understand where they're at. And if the client the patient relapse, that they are met at the Game Sense Advisor and the Game Sense Information Center to talk about some support that they can offer. And so the next slide, I'm going to talk about the key elements of the VSC. As Mark mentioned, it is a statutory and a regulatory requirement. So in the requirement, we do offer the VSC virtually and in person. So a patron can go into any of the 3 casinos into the Game Sense Information Center to do to enrollment, or they can go on a live chat on GameSenseMA.com's website, and live chat let the Game Sense Advisor know that they're interested, and the Game Sense Advisor will initiate a Zoom meeting where they will meet and have a enrollment session. One important thing to note about the VSC process, the enrollment forms, once it's completed, it gets sent to us, and we sort of evaluate and sort of assess to make sure that all the regulatory requirements are fulfilled before accepting it. Because we want to ensure that it meets all the requirements before we enroll them in. And the enrollment, right after they complete, we do offer a hard copy. And anytime if a patron forgets or needs a copy, they can always contact us at MGC, and we would always mail them a hard copy. So that's something that we always provide for the patron if they ever need a copy of their enrollment form. The next item, I really want to stress is that, the patron is freely, knowingly, and voluntarily enrolling into the program. This is a huge, huge component because it takes a lot for someone to admit that they have problem gambling. So we want to acknowledge that. And I think this is very, very important. And understanding that in the process of the enrollment, there is a structure, but it's not scripted, meaning we meet the patron where they're at, understanding how we can offer support, offering any referrals as needed. And in one of the terms, so I'm going to go to the terms and then I'm going to sort of go back to the second bullet. But the terms of the program explained and discussed to the patrons is that it's an agreement between the patron and the licensees that they are going to exclude themselves from the property. The licensees will also remove the motivation of the big winnings and the marketing and the rewards. So this is one of the items that we sort of work with, or the patron and the licensees make this agreement. And the third bullet point, the resources referrals are offered to the patrons. This also includes a telephonic follow with a peer specialist, and also for a reminder for those folks who would like a reminder. And so the process of the reminder for we let folks know. So typically a month before, I would go into the list, and anyone who's requested a reminder, I would send them either an email or a mail or both per their request of that term that are expiring and explaining the reinstatement session process. And to let them know that if they do not complete a reinstatement, they will be continue to remain on the list. And one key important factor to understand is that the VSC enrollment is confidential. We will never reach out to the patron unless they've requested a follow-up from either a peer specialist or from us to remind them the terms are ending, and or if the application submitted is not completed, or we unfortunately were not able to accept because it does not meet the regulatory requirements. And those are the only 3 times that we reach out and contact the patrons. So here I want to sort of drill down and sort of show the process of the one of the requirements for the VSC enrollment. Here these are the terms. So in the form, if you look at it on the right-hand side, there's the left-hand side, there's a box for the initial. So in all the terms, the patrons will need to go in and initial understanding the terms. So in the session, the game sense advisor will read the terms, but also take the time to explain it, because there's a lot of legal terms and a lot of verbiage that might be very complex. So the job of the session or the enrollment session is to explain specifically the terms. So these are the terms I cut out specifically talking about the reinstatement session. So the first one, it states that they're only eligible for reinstatement upon completion of the duration, and they can request removal by completing a reinstatement session with a designated agent. The name will continue to be on the list after the completion of the duration of exclusion until such time that they submit a petition for removal and has been approved from the commission or its designee. And the second term is that they agree to participate in a reinstatement session with a designated agent in order to remove from the list. The reinstatement session shall include a review of the risk and responsibilities of gaming, budget setting, and a review of problem gambling resources. And a reinstatement session can be scheduled by contacting the GAM line, which is 1-800-GAM-1234, or contacting the Mass Gaming Commission. And then the last piece is just a reminder. So this is something that they can elect if they would like a reminder. So by initialing and sort of selecting how they would like to be reminded, and or if they don't want to be reminded, they can click on the no reminder. But this is an option for folks who would like to get a mailing or email once they're closer to their term. So the next piece, because there's a lot of terms, and people might forget, we developed some documents that we want to implement or provide to the newly enrolled. The first document is a business card. So one side of the business card has the information, the contact information for the Game Sense, but also contains the information to contact the helpline. And the reverse side is the information that the Game Sense advisor will complete upon completion of the enrollment. It's the date of their enrollment, the term of their enrollment, and the date they're eligible to reinstate. And then the initial or the name of the Game Sense advisor who completed that enrollment. So this is something, we developed a business card, so it's something that the patron can put in their wallet or, can carry on or carry with them with the information of the enrollment. And the next material that we created after talking to one of the Game Sense advisor of how do we simplify the terms, because the terms are complex. How do we simplify it, or how do we provide a document that we can hand out to the patron who enrolled? And so one of the outcome was to develop this palm card. One side, I'm going to go from the right to the left. You see the information, the contact information for Game Sense Information Center, and also the helpline. And then the other side is really explaining sort of, well, what to expect now that I've enrolled. what can I,
Possible to make that a bit bigger.
oh, sorry.
Thanks. Thanks.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So here's some of the terms that people or most patrons commonly either forget or we would like them to remind them part of the BSC. Any question? And and this is something that we developed recently, and haven't implemented extensively, but something that we've sort of developed, and we're in the process of also translating it to different languages, traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish, Arabic, and Brazilian Portuguese. So we hope to have these 2 documents in those 6 languages in addition to English.
And Long, I brought up on the reinstatement that the 3rd bullet might be oversimplifying the process because it suggests that you just have to chat with the GameSense advisor. No appointment needed, just call or chat with GameSense when your period ends. Let us know if you need help entering the casino floor. Process is more involved than that, right?
So the reinstatement, and I can talk about, if I may, can I table that question? Because the next couple slides, I'm going to talk about the reinstatement process. And so that could explain sort of what is the process of the reinstatement.
Right. But specifically, if there is a way that we can make this more clear, we can absolutely make a change to this brochure before we begin widely distributing it.
Especially translating, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yep.
Good. Thank you.
Sorry, okay, there we go. Okay. So here's the key elements to the reinstatement session. Again, it can be conducted in person and virtually by a designated agent. The difference between the reinstatement session and the enrollment, once the reinstatement session is completed, the patron signs and the GameSense advisor signs, it goes into effect immediately. There's not a process for me to, or for us to verify or to check, because again, the reinstatement session is really, as mentioned on the 3rd bullet, is an educational session, not a clinical assessment. So it's really sort of meeting with the patron and sort of checking in the readiness to return to the gaming floor, offering support in setting budget, decision planning, and positive play. So it's really a chance for us to meet them, the patron where they're at, offering any support and really sort of counter that stigma that comes in and saying, hey, we're here. If down the line you relapse, you can come, ask for support and we're always available. The 2nd bullet, again, the patron is doing this freely, knowingly, and voluntarily reinstating to the gaming. It's very important because, it takes a lot, right, for a patron to admit that they have a gambling problem. Now they're coming in saying, you know what, I think I'm ready to come back to the floor. And so they're making that tough decision. And we want to sort of be there and available to support them in that effort. And I think the reinstatement session is really offering that space so that the patron can feel that they can seek support down the line if they need it. And the very last bullet that is very important is the resource and referrals offered to patrons. So it sort of going back to the chair's question. So part of the process, yes, they will do a either in-person or virtual meeting with a designated agent just to verify it's the patron, 1. 2, really sort of, putting a face to have a conversation, because these are difficult conversation, really offering that human side of having a conversation of, okay, now you're making that tough decision to go back in the gaming floor. How can we support you? How can we, offer resources as needed? And once that's all done and discussed, as they both sign, the patron will sign and the GameSense advisor will also sign. And that becomes into the system and it becomes effective immediately. And we recommend that the patron print it out, or we give them a printout and hold on to that reinstatement for up to 7 days. Because the operators might take, for the gaming, the regulation requires them to update every 72 hours. So the the casino operators might not update their VSE list, but if they're on the gaming floor, they're able to go on the gaming floor because they completed a reinstatement session by having that document. So we recommend that they hold on to it for 7 days. And our regs, we require the sports wagering operators to update their list every 24 hours. But again, we also recommend patrons to hold onto that documents in case if there's questions, they can produce that, and the operator should accept that form. And then,
Can I interrupt? This just for, I think we all understand this, for the point of clarification, the VSE in the reinstatement applies to all three.
That's correct. Yes,
properties.
correct. So,
And in terms of sports wagering, do you want that?
Yeah.
Individually, except for one operator, right?
No, so sorry. So when they VSE for the gaming, it is all three properties, and also it extends to the operators' sports wagering sports books.
All
So
operators.
correct, because that's the decision that the operators have opted for. VSE 1, VSE null. So that's the decision of the operator. But if the patron VSE for the sports wagering, it applies to all sports wagering. And again, the casino operators, they will extend it to their properties as well. Correct.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
So I'm going to talk more of the data. So what we have thus far, looking at since as of December 26, 2023, beginning of when VSE started, we have approximately about 2,300 patrons who have VSE'd. And out of that, we have about 32% who completed reinstatement. And the reason that I say about is because the data prior to the launch of the VSE app, we don't have a lot of the history. It's sort of migrated into the system. So, I'm working with IT and sort of sorting out and sort of having a better picture. But so this is a good estimate of what we have. And then looking at that, of the 727 who successfully completed reinstatement, we see that about 15% re-enrolled back into the VSE. So we, and again, this is just an approximation. Looking back, hopefully once we sort out all the VSE prior to the VSE app launch, we can get a better picture. But this is sort of an estimate right now. We see about 15% of those who have completed reinstatement go back and re-enrolled. And then here, with the collaboration with the IAB, we looked at all the VSE who were on the gaming floor per property. And this is just looking from January of this year, or last year, 2023, to December of 21. We see that a total of 124 unique VSE patrons were caught on the gaming floor. This is important to distinguish because we do see that some properties, they have some repeated patrons who have VSE'd who will show up on the floor multiple times. So the unique number is 124. Out of the 124, 24 actually were eligible to reinstate, but did not reinstate prior to being on the gaming floor. So that's about approximately 19% of total VSEs on the gaming floor that were eligible to reinstate that did not reinstate. It is high, and oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, just in other words, the duration of their exclusion, the 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, had ended, but they had not completed the reinstatement session yet.
Oh, sorry, Mark. I think this is your slide and I took it. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, you did a great job.
Thank you. And
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Mark,
Commissioner Skinner, yes.
could you please repeat what you just said?
Yeah, so the second table down below, eligible to reinstate VSEs on the gaming floor per property. So this is highlighting that there were basically in 2023, of the individuals that were on the gaming floor, found on the gaming floor, 24 of them were eligible to reinstate. In other words, the duration of the exclusion period had ended. When they enroll in the program, they sign up for either 1 year, 3 year, or 5 year, or lifetime. but 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. But they had not yet completed that reinstatement session, that end point where once you do that, your name is removed from the list.
And the
And
data set above, VSCs on the gaming floor, do we know at what point those individuals were intercepted? In other words, had they gambled? Do we have a point in time for any of this data?
Did we been working with IAB? Was that level of detail provided?
Yeah.
And if not, we can provide it. We can get it.
Yeah, so we do have some data. IAB do have all the data referring to Commissioner Skinner's question. We do have that information. I did not receive it, but we're happy to get that and pass it along.
Perfect, thank you. I'm interested specifically in the number of patrons who were intercepted upon a winning, a jackpot, something that triggers the confiscation rules.
Okay, Commissioner Skinner, is your question of the 124 unique individuals or 133 total, how many of them were intercepted because of a jackpot win?
That's right, as
for the
opposed to,
remainder, what was the other ways in which they were discovered on the gaming floor?
that's
Okay.
right. And it identified as a result of a wager, jackpot wager, or as opposed to identified just as part of their routine checks on VSC folks being on the gaming floor, whatever those might be. And to your point, I think that information would be helpful too. I don't know if that should come from you folks or from the IEB, but that's data that I'm interested in.
Okay, that would certainly require a collaboration with our IEB to get that level of detail.
And some of that might be executive session if it has to do with any security issues.
Okay, I believe that's the conclusion of the slides, and happy to take any further questions.
Commissioners, questions?
Can I just go back to my question? I'd also like that data with respect to the second data set eligible to reinstate on the gaming floor.
And your full question, Commissioner Skinner, just for clarity, please. You would like on that with respect to the second set?
Just to understand, the same question as applies to the first data set, just trying to understand at what point during the VSC individual's visit were they intercepted? Were they identified?
And I did want to make just one last comment about this final slide. The 19% to us is something, it's a data point that we want to continue to try to take a look at and how we can reduce that number of individuals whose duration had ended, but they just hadn't completed that reinstatement session. If it is a case where they forgot that this reinstatement session was a requirement, we want to make sure that we're being as clear as possible, both during the enrollment period and anything in between where there's an opportunity to communicate with them. We really like it when people say, I would like to receive a reminder email or letter prior to the end of my exclusion, so that we know that that's a really important touch point. But again, that's voluntary. So we'll continue to try to take a look at how we can, do a better job of decreasing that 19% overall. Along, maybe you want to take down the slides?
Oh, sorry. I thought I stopped sharing. My apologies.
Well, so to that last point, Mark, which is an important one, because you don't want folks going on the gaming floor and gambling, thinking they're properly there, only to find if they hit the jackpot or they're noticed that they're asked to leave. Are you, I know that you used surveys before on the early research slide. When we find these folks on the gaming floor, are you able to ask them? Do you have some process, or are you planning on that kind of a process so that they could say, oh, I really thought I was properly on, as opposed to, I've been coming here for the last 6 months, nobody's bothered me. You know, I finally went big and somebody now is troubled.
Yeah.
I think that's an important data point, right?
Yeah, and so Chair, you asked a really great question. So part of the process when a VSC is down on the gaming floor, we work with the operators at the security to bring the patron to the Game Information Center. And again, because it's a really a solution based approach. It's really sort of meeting them where they're at, having a conversation, and really understanding how we can offer support. If they are still on the VSE list, what additional support can we sort of offer them? But those who are eligible, we have that conversation and sort of get a better sense of, how can we better message, or how do we better, communicate to remind folks. And one fascinating thing, drilling down the numbers of all the unique patrons who are eligible to reinstate, not all of them completed reinstatement. And it's really eye-opening to see, there are some folks, even though they are caught on the gaming floor, they eligible did not reinstate. And so that's sort of fascinating, sort of understanding. So those folks who choose not to reinstate, what's going on? How do we offer support? How do we support them and meet them where they're at?
Commissioner Maynard, you're nodding your head. You should have a follow-up. I mean, I don't know what you're envisioning for a process. This is.
So thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, most importantly, I want to thank the GameSense advisors for all the work that they do every day on these issues and meeting folks where they are. I am interested in the communications piece of this, and I've talked to Mark and Long about it. Don't know if maybe connecting with Mills and Dave Souza or someone. I looked at the materials; they're very good. But just like everything we've been looking at lately, I think there's an opportunity for it to be clearer. In short, I mean, it looks like it's pulled directly from the reg, but most, readers don't read in reg. They read in plain English. And for example, I wrote out yesterday, under the subheading of what happens to your winnings, you lose them, right? If you're on the VSE, you don't get your money, right? And I want to say that here, right? Maybe that's another way we can communicate. You don't get your winnings and you don't recover your losses. And how can we communicate that in a way that makes it effective? Again, we're talking about the margins. This works for the most part, right? And Mark pointed this out. It's just a margin thing. How can we close the margin? So I think communication, as Long said, is key. I think that we've got to get more skin in the game from the operators. It can't just be, well, we look for someone when they win a jackpot, right? I think they have to be a little more proactive on finding folks that they think are on the floor. And then, I think that capturing as much information from this this group of people, doing it in a healthy way that doesn't discourage or make them suspect of why we're asking questions. I think if we can do that, it's helpful. So those are my thoughts, but I think it's really a marginal communications issue, and I think it's very solvable with Mark and Long and team putting their heads together.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Maynard. There was one piece here that I think Chair Jetstein you mentioned and Commissioner Maynard. we did take a look at those individuals who had violated the voluntary self-exclusion. The duration was done, but they just hadn't completed the reinstatement. How many of them had requested a notification, that sort of opt-in notification? And most of them had not requested that opt-in notification. So I think that that was an important data point. And Chair Judstein, I think, you know, it all kind of comes back to like the GameSense team when somebody does violate that self-exclusion agreement. And so I think that while that is there, we could probably do a better job, or we can document in a more thorough way sort of what happened and perhaps where we can tighten up the communication piece, as Commissioner Maynard pointed out.
Yeah, and it's not to shame anyone. It's mainly so that they, you know, don't find themselves in that predicament. You know, it's unfortunate. So I agree with Commissioner Maynard. It's on the margin, but I think you have you've got a good goal there. It's 19% in terms of actual numbers, not bad, right? But you know, this is what your program is, Long, and Long didn't mention, but I think I spoke to you, and you're anticipating translating all the information into 5 or 6?
6. So currently we have 6, but we want to add an extra one. We want to add Haitian Creole. So we definitely want to include that. So that's going to be total 7.
Yeah.
So we're continually adding different languages as, you know, expanding. And our website, thegamesensema.com, has a widget where it allows the website information to be translated in different languages. And so we recommend and we refer folks to it, and it does a really fantastic job. Chair, if I may, you know, the question you asked regarding the contact. So when a patron contacts us or contact the GameSense advisor and sort of asks about their term, that is usually when we communicate with them and reinforce, please remember to reinstate when your term expires. But typically, you know, when we do get phone calls from patrons, because like, you know, some patrons might forget, a year might be too long and they might forget when they're eligible. When they do reach out to us, we do sort of explain to them and give them the answer, but also explain to them, please complete a reinstatement. So that's the communication that we do offer, and we do sort of reinforce if they reach out to us. Unfortunately, because this list is confidential, we cannot reach out to them unless they've given us permission. And I think that's what Mark was alluding. If the folks who requested a reminder, we can definitely tighten up the information that we send out, because that is actually sent out via email or snail mail or both if they requested it. So we do send those out to folks.
And Long manages that on a monthly basis. So we're
and to be clear, to properly reinstate, you actually have to execute a document.
Correct. So once you meet and have a discussion with the GameSense advisor, the patron has to sign it, and the GameSense advisor also has to sign it.
And then Long encourages everybody to bring their papers.
Yes, correct. So, you know, because it gives them, you know, they go to the gaming floor. So if something happens, they can show that document, and they are reinstated.
Commissioners, go ahead, Commissioner Maynard.
I just have a question. Lon, can they get a digital copy of that? I'm just thinking realistically here. My doctor hands me a note that says your appointment is next year. And then they also email me through my chart. And I pay more attention to the emails than I do the card.
Yep.
Is that possible?
Yeah, so we do have that option. So if they're doing a reinstatement in the casino, they print it out and give it to the individual, the patron. If the patron requests an email, there's not a reason why we cannot email them. But virtually, in a virtual reinstatement, yes, that will be sent to them. And so, you know, they can print it out or they can download it in a PDF format. So it is a PDF format they get, and they can either print it out or keep it. But we do recommend them to hold on to it for 7 days in case something happens. This is their verification that complete the reinstatement session.
Commissioner Maynard, you made me think that when I get reminders, a lot of times it's a text message, and we're only offering snail mail or email. And I'm wondering if we should be offering a text message, and that a lot of times that gets noticed more than an email or a letter that's coming in the mail.
You can give the choice, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Or they can ask for all three.
Or ask for all three, yeah.
Yeah.
We can explore that. And you know, we had that slide on relapse, and you know, we're presenting this information as individuals who violate the voluntary self-exclusion agreement. But overall, these are individuals who at one point in time said, I realize I have a problem and I need to get some help here. And there's a violation of this agreement, and that's relapse. And this is, you know, as we say in a lot of different contexts, relapse is part of recovery. And so these are individuals that, while they're discovered on the gaming floor gambling in violation of this agreement, there are also individuals that are struggling to control their gambling. And whatever we can do to support them on this overall recovery journey from, you know, from beginning to end is really important. And that's why that human touch with a game sense advisor is important, that this is not an enforcement or an administrative function. We never want it to be that. We want to recognize that this is somebody, a human being that's really wanting to get some help. And that's what we want to provide for them. And just, you know, a lot of other states, this, and where I moved from Iowa, one of the things that bothered me was that it felt like an administrative function, and that is enforced by security at a casino. And that in Iowa and many other states, that's how this is done. And while we absolutely need to do what we need to do to remove somebody from the gaming floor if they're in violation of this agreement, we also need to recognize that from enrollment, if they're found on the gaming floor, to this reinstatement session, that we can do a really good job of helping people.
Correct. And to echo Commissioner Maynard's point, you know, the game sense advisors do a great job, because it's really sort of being that the humanizing, you know, voice for someone who are having difficulties, really putting a face, because like Mark said, like other jurisdiction, it is done more of a punitive, and we're very proud, and we're proud that we do take the human aspect and meeting folks where they're at, and sort of understanding and offering support and trying to sort of tackle the stigma behind it.
Excellent. Any further questions from Long or Mark? Long, it's great to see you, and excellent job, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 8, commissioners. I know that Joe is out today, but his very strong, I want to make sure, team. Well, I see Mary. I don't necessarily see Lily, but Mary, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. No, Lily is on vacation this week, so you're stuck with me for today.
We love it.
Okay. Well, Madam Chair and Commissioners, today we have a request from the City of Springfield's Department of Health and Human Services for budget modification of the current Safe Ride Home grant. This project's purpose is to develop public awareness campaigns to increase communications and community outreach about alcohol-impaired driving. Funding for this reallocation became available as a result of delays in the hiring process of the community health worker. The scope of this project would now include surveys which may be able to better inform the public on excess alcohol and associated DUIs. What they want to research would go a long way in developing the work plan for this program. Staff recommends the transferring of the funds to the research funding, and also recommends allowing the purchase of the identified supplies that they need. So questions?
I have had the pleasure of being able to work, Madam Chair, with the committee on this as we put this before you. And I'm certainly very supportive. And Mary, I don't want to speak on behalf of the department, but I believe you folks are in support of this as well.
Yes, we are.
Questions, commissioners?
Okay, we do need a vote on this.
I'm waiting to see if they're
If we have any
doing their
comments.
reading. I've got commissioners. Let's just see if we have commissioners going to join us. Commissioner Maynard's giving me the thumbs up. Commissioner O'Brien, do you have any questions? Okay, Commissioner Skinner, are you all set?
Just 1 minute. I had to run and find my paperwork. I'm sorry.
No
That's
worries.
okay.
This was carried over from the last meeting and it was just in a different pile.
It's a
Nope, I am good.
reallocation.
Great.
Madam Chair,
Yep, Commissioner Hill?
with no other questions, I move the commission approve modification of the 2023 Community Mitigation Fund grant to the Springfield Department of Health and Human Services for the Springfield Safe Ride Home Project by authorizing a reallocation of $20,115 in funding and a release of $2,000 as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Only thing I would add as an editorial is that I just want to thank Commissioner Colton Harris for her leadership. She's on the GPAC as well, and I support her efforts here in the Springfield Department of Human Services. Anything further? Commissioner O'Brien?
Aye.
Commissioner Hill?
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner?
Aye.
Commissioner Maynard?
Aye.
And I vote yes, 5-0.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Okay.
Year.
All right. Now we're moving on to the diversity audit that the MGC has been really responsible for. I believe to a third party. Commissioner Skinner, do you want to tee it up? And then I know we're turning to Denise, Chief Moultrie is not able to make it today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will tee it up for Beniswa by saying I think she has a very good report today that you'll appreciate.
Thank you. And just a kind of a recap, we're doing a workforce and supplier diversity audit on the 3 casinos. So that would be Plain Ridge Park Casino, MGM, and Encore Boston Harbor. And this is really to see how well or how efficiently they are reporting their diversity efforts. I do want to make note that this is voluntary, that they're disclosing this information to us. It is not a policy. So there are 3 phases to the audit. We've already completed phases 1 and 2. Phase 1 was the kickoff, and which involved the document request to conduct the audits. Phase 2 was the testing phase and the walkthroughs of the information provided. And phase 3 is drafting the report. So we're really happy to report that all 3 of the casinos are in phase 3, which are the drafting phases, the reporting phases. We expect to receive a preliminary report by January the 19th. And within that report, we hope to see the recommendations with regards to the casinos, to hear about the findings. And then the next steps would be a debrief with RSM and our project team, and then we would close out with the final meeting with the casinos.
Questions for Beniswa, and Happy New Year, Beniswa. Nice to see your face.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Want to thank RSM, and can you remind me, that was a bid of some sort, Todd, or how did that come around? Or Beniswa, you were probably part of the procurement team, right?
Right. So we put out a bid, a public request for proposals to do the audit. and they they were successful in receiving that bid. I believe it came down to two agencies put in for it, and RSM was the winner out of those two.
Got it. Thank you. Anything further on that? We look forward to the final reports.
I am too.
Okay. All right, commissioners. Thank you, Beniswa. Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Now we're going to turn to 10 and 11, the Executive Director Screening Committee update, and then the IEB Director Screening Committee. So first, Commissioner O'Brien and Commissioner Maynard.
Yep. So we are down to a committee of 4, obviously with Heather's departure, but we have marched on. We have started the first round of interviews. We have some, I believe a few more still to be scheduled, but I would anticipate first round would be done before the end of the month. We reserve the right to do second round if we needed it before we make the recommendations to the full commission, but we are moving ahead. I don't know if Commissioner Maynard wants to add anything.
Just that Commissioner O'Brien has done a fantastic job chairing this and keeping everything moving.
Questions for? Do we have a sense as to, as you're going through interviews, what you anticipate for the commission in terms of numbers of ultimate candidates for us to be considering?
No, I mean, the directive we were given is that the idea is you forward at least 2. So that would be my anticipation. You would get at least 2. If we have a trio or more that we find are all, so compelling that we would forward to you, we would do that. But at a minimum, you would get 2. But I don't think it would be more than 3 in any circumstances. Commissioner Maynard, I don't know if you have different thoughts.
Yeah, I think keeping an open mind is just where I am, but I think, yeah, the minimum 2 for sure.
2 is required by law, I think.
Yeah. But it's not like we're capping. It's not like our thought is we're only submitting 2, if that's what your question is. The question really is, are these viable candidates that we think should go to the body of 5? Then they would be forwarded to the body of 5.
Thank you. That's helpful. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay. Now, with respect to I think a timeline will be important for us to have. So we'll just keep it on our agenda setting so that you can keep us up to date for timeline purposes. IEB Director Screening, Commissioner Skinner, Commissioner Hill.
Commissioner Hill, jump in at any time if you need to. So happy to report that this committee started the new year with interviews. Our first round was not first round, but our first interview was on Tuesday. Top of the year, the very top of the year. We have identified 14 candidates that we would like to talk to. They are scheduled through next Friday, the 12th. I think all but 2 of them have been scheduled. And so that being said, we hope to convene on the 17th, I want to say, the day before the full commission meets on the 18th, with the goal of talking through and identifying candidates to put through to and recommend to the full commission for further interviews. I think, I know, like the other committee, our committee has not predetermined the number of candidates we'd like to advance. We are just reviewing the applicants, conducting the interviews and seeing where we land, but we are off to a really good start. Commissioner Hill?
I would only add that I'm very happy at the type of candidates that have come forward and put their name forward for consideration. Very different backgrounds. But would be great leaders. So we have a lot of work in front of us, but I'll tell you, we've had some great applicants to see and meet in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, really good poll.
Commissioner Hill, thank you for sharing that. That's really, really helpful. Anything further? Okay. We'll turn to Commissioner's update. During our application process, we were trying to imagine how we make clear the regulated landscape in Massachusetts, and Commissioner O'Brien, the idea of a good housekeeping seal has come up. We don't have that in any regulation, but I thought that maybe we could kick off the conversation today to see what next steps might be needed from our staff and from a regulation if necessary.
I don't know if you want me to kick it off or whether that was the kickoff to staff, but
that was your kickoff, yeah.
this came up. It's funny as we go through past minutes from, you know, when we were getting ready to launch, things have come back up for me to sort of bring up again at agenda setting. This was one of them that came up organically already. And the idea being, I think it came out of one of the roundtables that we had in terms of how do you help the licensees that we have who are subjected to the requirements and the costs of licensing stand apart from those that are in the illegal market. And I was, I think, very taken aback, I think, of the first of the year where you had even CNN putting out answers to where you could go on platforms that were illegal platforms. That blew me away. So to the extent that we can make it as easy as possible for consumers here to know they're on a legal platform, I'd love to find a way to do it. One of the ways was this idea of having a seal that went in line with getting a Massachusetts license. And so that when then there could be a PSA almost that went out to consumers in Massachusetts to know if you're on this platform in Massachusetts, you know you're in a legal platform. So I guess the question for staff also is that something that would require a reg change somehow in terms of the structure of what they offer on their websites or their apps, et cetera. And then also just, you know, I see Mills unmuted too, just a design component and conversations with them. And, you know, I don't want to make this cumbersome on the licensees. I would see this as something that's a value add for them and for the consumers.
I would just add this. I think it, you know, we've got the Apples and the Googles out there that are sending out advertising, and there's not always clarity to those big organizations as to who is actually licensed and who's illegal and not. And to the extent that we can lead this conversation by helping to not only have our list of licensees, you know, very prominent on our website, something that, you know, media and advertising agents could see that this is a licensed and approved operator. You know, we want to help those in the business get it right. So I think we turn now, Commissioner O'Brien, to Todd and Mills to see what next steps could we do, and also we have to turn to the commissioners. Do we like the idea? But maybe we should know what it means for the work for our team, and then what it would mean for the operators. Todd?
Yes, well, certainly from a legal perspective, I think we would probably need a regulation of some sort, just to ensure that there's a uniform approach and a clear understanding as to what the expectation is, what it means, and how we go about achieving that. So we can certainly start thinking about that. I don't know, I haven't looked into this, so I don't know if this exists in any space within this industry. As you mentioned, it certainly does in other places.
So is Mark still on? I have a memory that maybe, does Vancouver do this? Does British Columbia do this? I feel like there might be another international regulatory body that does this.
Justin's weighing in.
I just add a note here, commissioners, that New Jersey does have a seal that they require. It's usually on the footer of the website. I'm not clear if it's on the apps themselves. We'll probably check with our operators to confirm that. But Curacao does as well. You may be on, I think Ontario may as well, Commissioner O'Brien. So yep. we could certainly check with other jurisdictions, but it is something that other jurisdictions and countries have done.
And Justin, do you think it has impact? Do you think it helps in terms?
I think it's very useful for knowing at a glance if you're a discerning consumer and you want to see the verification. It's quite helpful, and I know that in past practice when I was looking at whether it be other companies and just to figure out like where are these companies operating and where are they regulated. It's a helpful tool to be able to scroll down to the bottom of their homepage, for example, and see that they have the seals from whichever jurisdictions that they're officially regulated and authorized to do business in. So I think it is helpful.
Great. Tom, what are you thinking in terms of design and what we might be able to do? I don't know if you've thought about it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think David, Souza, and I would, we'd work internally, and then we'd also work with some of our partners who help us with graphic elements, and then have, conversations through the sports wagering division with the licensees about what requirements they may need to see for the specific graphic on their platforms.
Seems to be a good thing to kick off the new year with. Commissioners, anyone have any questions or doubts about it?
No doubts. Just want to make sure that, as Tom said, that, I think this is a partnership, as Commissioner O'Brien kind of said, and that it actually helps and making sure they're involved in, what does it look like? Where does it go? Ultimately, the commission can have the say, but I think there's got to be buy-in across the universe on this to make it work and make people understand what it is.
Makes sense. Any other concerns or questions or? So I think then the first steps is to maybe take Justin's suggestion and see if there's a reg New Jersey is employed or Ontario and see how we can replicate and come up with something that is a quick look to say, you are a licensee of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Okay, anything else? Commissioner O'Brien, are you all set on that? Oh, good.
I'm all set.
All right. Commissioners, it is 12:30. Do you have any other business? Commissioner Hill, did I see a yes? You do have more business? I'm teasing.
The only business I'm watching right now is my dog looking at a squirrel on the other side of the door. And I don't know what's going to happen when I open that door.
I did see you kind of smiling earlier, and I thought it was a little bit out of context. So I assume you're getting some kind of joy from your pet, which is a great thing.
You can always tell in Ipswich when there's going to be a storm because all the squirrels and the other little critters get out and do their business before it gets here. And boy, they are filling the backyard today.
Commissioner Hill, you almost sound like a Vermonter, only we talk about cows. So there you go.
So with that said, I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner Skinner. All right, Commissioner Skinner, I see you've got a new attire on. Thank you for that. Looks good. Any further questions? Okay, Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
Commissioner Maynard.
Aye.
I vote yes, 5-0. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to the entire team. Thanks, Todd, for all your work.